Roberto Martinez pulled a rabbit out of the hat as he beat Julian Nagelsmann and got this man on the front pages again. But how exactly did Portugal go about in beating Germany after such a long time? Well, as it happens, that's exactly what we're talking about. And we start by looking at Germany in attack. As you can see, they had the center backs on the side of the goalkeeper and then their full backs giving them width. And you will see that the press from Portugal is much more focused centrally, which then gives a kind of a difficult decision for the player who's there in the middle. It could have been Neto, it could be anyone who's playing on the wing. Now he has to decide, does he stick with the player who's wide or does he stick with the player who's central? Most of the times they chose to stay with the central player. And if that happened, then what Germany will do, they will just play the ball wide. In which case, then Portugal did this thing very well. They were then able to just cover the ground and stay goal side, which then forced Germany to move back inside, where they had options, as you can see on this graphic. And for the most part, Germany were playing the ball, and what Portugal did were not trying to always win the ball back as quickly as possible. And as you can see this by their discipline, because Portugal will always have 4 people staying at the back to make sure that they don't give Germany space in behind to be exploited. So Portugal stayed disciplined so that when Germany eventually got the ball forward, they had enough players at the back. So then even if Germany got the ball into the box, they were still there and they had numbers behind the ball to recover. But another thing about Germany, we can talk about how Portugal were good and disciplined. But another thing to look at, Germany were poor when it comes to getting in the box. Because here you can see clearly they get in the box, but then they are unable to finish the chances that they created for themselves. And you can continue to see here that Germany were more worried, rather Portugal were more worried about the ball going to the middle. So they were men marking the double pivots of the German national team. And then when the ball came back to midfield, you can clearly see they would then be there to win the ball. But if somehow they made it behind that defensive line, Germany were just poor. They were not very good at deciding and doing the right things inside the box. So you have to look at this, right? Because we're talking about Portugal, and we're talking about a game that a lot of people say that this game was lost, or this game was won by Portugal because they made the right subs. So I want you to hold the thought. Watch the screen and look at what's happening here. Because now this is Portugal playing out from the back and getting pressured, by the way, which leads to them losing the ball. But as I said, hold that thought because this moment becomes much more significant, or was much more significant in another part of the game. So this is Germany pressing Portugal when they're trying to play from the back, and eventually they win the ball back. And now Florian Wirtz has the ball, and unlike when Germany were the ones who had the ball, now this is a transitional situation because they just lost the ball. And initially when they're building up from the back, they are not as organized as when they're defending. So they are now scrambling, trying to get back to position. And if you have smart players like Abo Wirtz, they will be able to play the ball and then Abo Kimmich a pitch of a pass over. Once again, you see who's there. That's João Neves, the one who's being played as a right back. And he's not a right back. Hold that thought. Again, so then the ball is played back post, and then Wirtz has played that one too, and then it goes in and then he scores the goal. So this is the trick, or this is the rabbit that was pulled out of her head. Before I talk about this rabbit, please do make sure to subscribe to the channel. That would be very nice. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Much in that. Thank you. Anyways, there we go. So you have Consensao coming in, you have Vitinha coming in, and then you have Usemedo coming in. Now, Martinez tried something. He tried something and it didn't work. He tried playing a right back, a midfielder as a right back. And in Europe, this thing has happened. We saw it with Thomas Partey at Arsenal. We saw it with even Kimmich is more of a midfielder than a right back, but it does the job just fine. But it's a special kind of a player. we've seen players being played as right back. Even Moses Caicedo, Chelsea, played as a right back, but he's more of a midfielder. So I think Martinez was trying the same experiment. It just didn't work because, as we've talked about in the goal, that experiment was just not working. So they now bring on a proper right back, and then they bring more pace up front with Ukonsensao instead of Utrinkao, and then they bring on Uvitina as well, which I think was the most important change of Uvitina, because when you have Uvitina, you are giving the opponent something to think about. So here we go. They come in. But what's important here is knowing that as much as these guys changed the game, they didn't change the plan. Because the same way that Portugal played before the substitutions is exactly the same way that they played with these people. It's just that when they came on, they had, what's the word? They are more suited to the game, right? They are more suited to the style that Martinez was trying to play. Let me make an example. This is Portugal attacking in the first half, Ronaldo getting a chance and not scoring. And then once again, you have Portugal on transition, winning the ball back and then being on attack, Neto over the goal, right? Again, this is another transitional moment, ball over the top, and then they don't score. And then when this change happens, you will see the same thing that happened before. It's just that these ones are more suited to the style. So this is Germany. They are attacking. They lose the ball. A few seconds later, the ball is now on the other side. Now, I need you to look at who's close to the ball. There is Vitinha there, close to the ball. When he gets the ball, he plays the ball first time. He doesn't even try to keep the ball too long. He plays the ball, and all of a sudden, you have Mendes playing a 1-2, and then Bruno gives him the ball back, and then the ball is played across, and then it's a goal. Now, there's another element that I'm going to show you in a second that was happening with this goal and how Ronaldo was positioned in this game. You'll also see that even before these guys came in, the Portuguese were trying to play from the back, and they were patient in doing so. And when they sucked Germany in for the pressure, which didn't work when they considered a goal, but for the most part, they were trying to get Germany to press them, and then they will try to play the ball in behind, like you see here in this picture. So these things of having two false nines, you'll have Bruno sometimes dropping alongside Ronaldo, not really being right against the center backs of Germany, but they were just right in front of them, not too close, so that they can suck them in. And then when the ball is now being played behind, they can now start making those runs. Sometimes it was Neto, sometimes it was Trincao, and then you see the ball is being played over. They suck in Germany, and then they try to play the ball long. And then you can see there is that huge space centrally, which kind of at times confuse the defenders of Germany, if you will. Now, another thing that is important to note, of course, as you can see one more time, where Ronaldo is not staying as a number 9, is that when these guys came on, you will see a lot of movement to create space for the player who had the ball. Consensao has the ball here. And what do you see? You see Semedo making that run from inside to out, which creates that huge space in the middle for Consensao to now drive into. But now there's a secondary problem. As he's driving there, now there's a defender who has moved across to that space. Now Bruno Fernandes does something very brilliant, because he now runs and drags the defender away from that space, which creates more space for Consensao to then take a shot, and then Portugal score their goal. So it's still the same thing. Portugal were playing the ball in the first half. They were just not, they did not have the best squad for the game, right? Not Tutu João Neves is not a good player. Put him in midfield and see what it does, right? It's not that Trincao is not a good player, but if there's someone better than him, like Consensao, comes in, he gives you something. So what Roberto Martinez did in this game is just realize the mistakes that he made in the first place and fix them. And that's what good coaches do. But what did you guys make of the match? Do let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.